Hello everyone and welcome to another edition of the Talking Football podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to say we're joined on the line this week by former Scotland Motherwell, Hartlepool, FC Twente and Hearts defender Rab McKinnon. Rab, thank you very much for coming on.
No problem, Derek. It's good to be on. Thanks very much. Hopefully everyone's had a good Christmas.
Yeah, absolutely. And likewise for yourself, Rab. We were just talking off air there. You've managed to have a good one yourself, despite the restrictions in place.
Yeah, it was quiet, obviously, but I think that's pretty much par for the course for everyone. Restricted to the numbers that we can have in the house and stuff. So it was good. I had my dad over for the day, so it was an enjoyable time, and very low key. But I think in the current situation, I think everyone has to do their bit, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back on the career, then, fantastic career in football. When you were born back in July 1966, Rab, back in Glasgow, did you always have sort of aspirations to be a footballer from a young age?
I always enjoyed playing football, certainly, rather than watching it. When I was a kid, I played for my local school team, and we get thumped every week by double figures most weeks. We actually had a girl long before there was any kind of ladies teams. Well, I'm sure there was, but it wasn't as popular nowadays. But we had a girl playing our primary school team, just because our numbers were pretty poor, and she was actually one of the better players. So it was strange, but I was from about the age of about eight years old. I got into the primary school team and really loved playing my football. We moved from Glasgow out to East Kilbride when I was about 8, and I joined a local club, EKYC, that all my family really have some kind of involvement in over the years. My brother, my oldest son, my youngest son currently plays for them, and so we've got an affinity with the club in East Kilbride, and we've enjoyed kind of growing up in the area, and it's been good for us.
Yeah, when you mentioned there you preferred playing as opposed to watching football, did you follow any team when you were growing up at all?
I love Jimmy Johnstone. My dad was a Celtic fan, still a Celtic fan to this day. He took me to the games when I was younger, only because there was no such thing as babysitters back then, and you were kind of dragged to the game. But I did enjoy going watching it. Myself and my brother. My brother used to spend most of the time going around about Parkhead, picking up ring pools to send into the school for these kind of heart monitors and all that the hospitals took care of. So he wasn't really as interested as I was, but I just loved playing the game. And Jimmy Johnstone and probably Kenny Dalglish to a later extent of my childhood were my two idols, if you like.
Yeah, absolutely. When you were playing at EKYC, did you sort of realise at an early age that you were pretty good and you could maybe carve a career in the game?
Not really, no. I was playing local East Kilbride team, as I say, EKYC. My dad was my manager for about 8 years.
Yeah.
I had a couple of chances to go to clubs and train with them, but I just enjoyed the group of players that I was playing with in my local team. Went to school with some of them, and others were friends, and it was just a great team. We had good success with that team as well. And when you win and with your friends, it's quite you're reluctant to kind of move on and try it yourself at that age. I just thought, if it happens, it happens. And when I eventually left school, I went on to play for a semi-professional team, Rutherglen Glencairn, in the junior league, and that's when I got picked up with Newcastle. So, I was probably a late developer at kind of 18 years old, but it kind of went fairly quickly from junior football all the way to playing for Newcastle, to be honest.
Yeah, what was the juniors like to play in? Because it's a baptism of fire for young players. How did you find it?
I loved it. I was a skinny wee winger, believe it or not, up until the 18. We had a game against the biggest junior side at the time, Pollock. Yeah. And wow. I was asked to fill in at left back because of work commitments for a normal left back. And that particular game, we beat Pollock. I think I scored, and the Newcastle scout was at the game at the time, Jack McCartney. Jack recommended me to Newcastle. Went down there for a week's trial and must have impressed enough to get my first contract. So it was a massive step from, junior football part-time to go to, Newcastle, who were just been promoted to the top league.
Yeah, and as a young boy going down there as well, what was did you live yourself, or did you sort of stay in digs when you went down there?
I was lucky enough. I had an aunt, my Auntie Mary, who still lives down in Newcastle to this day. She's 95 now, so wow. I stayed with her for the 2 years that I was at Newcastle, and then I moved on to Hartlepool, and I kind of moved down into that area. But the 2 years at Newcastle, guys like Gascoigne and Waddle, Beardsley, people like that, it was a phenomenal experience for me, and obviously one that you take with you to your kind of last breath, to be honest.
Absolutely. I was going to mention the sort of players that you shared a dressing room with down there, but you mentioned Gazza first of all. What was he like as a talent, and off the field as well as a character? It must have been quite a lively dressing room.
Yeah, he was mad as a brush, to be honest with you. Incredible talent. We all knew. The coaches probably wrapped him in a little bit more cotton wool than the rest of us, just purely because they knew the kind of talent that he had. You could see that at his age. He's a year younger than me. So I was 18, just 18 going on 19, and when he was an apprentice there, he was still 18, and he was fantastic talent. They won the Youth Cup that year, which again was quite a prestigious competition for the youth teams down there. And it was a great talent. It really was. And people like Beardsley and Waddle, they brought him on. They looked after all the young kids coming through, myself included, and it was invaluable to have these guys over your shoulder just giving you advice. And it's as I say, it was a great club, great players. Jack Charlton was a manager. Yeah. He was the same. He was his own man at times. He would just disappear and go off on his fishing trips and stuff, and leave the coaches to coach. And that that was the way he was. Everybody knew it the way it was, so we just got on with it.
Yeah, I was going to mention Jack Charlton, of course, sadly passed away this year. A legend of the game. What was it like to work under a guy like that, and moving from the juniors to play with or train under him, a World Cup winner, of course, and again another great character, wasn't he?
Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I had a guy called Billy Ditchburn was my manager at Glencairn, and he was great as well. Really looked after me as a young kid, because obviously the junior game, as you probably know, is quite rough and tumble. Yeah. I was just coming out of playing youth football, so you were, as I say, I was a winger, a wide man at the time, and you're on the end of some rough tackle, shall we say, which you just have to get up, dust yourself down and get on with it. So he looked after me in that respect, and obviously when I got the chance to go to Newcastle, he was absolutely delighted. And Charlton was, he was a kind of one-off, to be honest. The meeting we had with my dad, we went down for a reserve game, a midweek game. We watched the game, and then Charlton brought us into his office, and he poured my dad a half, which, typical, they just look at every Scottish person as whiskey drinkers. He poured my dad a half, and he sat and had a half with him in his office, and just basically said, look, we'll get the kid signed up and he'll be a good addition to our squad. And, he kind of gave my dad the assurance that, everything was going to be okay. I was going to have to leave home, obviously, stay down in Newcastle with my aunt. So he was a fantastic, great manager. I loved working under him, and he certainly gave me a chance to kind of push into the first team, albeit it was Willie McFall that gave me my debut. But I think it was more to do with Jack Charlton helping me, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Did you go on any of these fishing trips that you went on at all?
Unfortunately, I took up fishing about 10, 12 years ago with a teammate of mine at Bellshill Juniors, wee Sean. And he's a keen fisherman, outdoor guy, climber, all sorts. And I've only went fishing with him rather than all the other stuff. But I love the fishing now. It's something, unfortunately, I don't get enough time for. But back in the day, I wish I had have taken it up at an earlier age, because it's a fantastic pastime. It just gets you in the middle of nowhere, just, kind of clears your head. And maybe that's why Jack loved, the arduous of managing every day to get away on a river. I know exactly how he feels, to be honest, now.
How did you find it living down Newcastle as well? Because obviously, of course, it's a football mad city, isn't it? It's the passion for the football is unreal. Is that something that you enjoyed living down in and sort of living and breathing it in down there?
Absolutely loved it. It's a great city, great nightlife, just great people. They were all fantastic. Very, very similar to the Scottish kind of mentality. They're from the north of England and obviously very close to us Scots in a lot of ways, their traditions and everything else. So it was great. I had 2 great years. I really enjoyed it, and obviously still have friends to this day that I still keep in contact with. So great city, great place.
Your debut then, can you remember much about it?
I can remember the score. I can remember getting whipped off. I can remember who came on for me. But everything else was pretty much a blur, to be honest. We got absolutely thumped after taking the lead as well at White Hart Lane. But again, when you look at the Tottenham side, Waddle had left Newcastle, went to Tottenham.
Yeah.
Glenn Hoddle, John Chidozie, Paul Allen. I mean, these are guys that maybe your younger audience won't have heard too much of, but I can assure you, I know exactly how good they were that day. That's for sure. It was an absolute lesson in football. We ended up getting beat 5-1. I got subbed and Gazza came on, and it was just a phenomenal experience. Newcastle fans there must have been easy 2, 3, possibly more, thousands of fans down at White Hart Lane that day, and it was a great day. But unfortunately, the result, it's can't take it away from me. I played for Newcastle United, who are a massive, massive club, but unfortunately, it went sour after that, and I left at the end of the season.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Are you disappointed that you couldn't stay longer there and establish yourself more in the team?
I was gutted, to be honest. I thought, having played against Spurs, then doing okay. I'd been away in a pre-season tournament over in Isle of Man. Had done really well. Played in a pre-season friendly against Sheffield Wednesday, I think it was, at St James's, and that was the game that Jack walked out on, because there was a very small crowd that day. I think we drew 1 each. It was a kind of pre-season friendly. There was nothing at stake, but a couple of fans had given him some stick in the stand, and Glenn Roeder, the captain at the time, came in after the game, and he told us all that the manager had walked out. And having just kind of got on the fringe of the first team, I was absolutely gutted. Willie McFall took over, who was his number 2 at the time. Willie was a good enough guy. He was a goalkeeper all his career from Northern Ireland, and it just didn't click. There was no personality clash with him. It gave him a debut again. I'm very thankful for that, but it just didn't click for me, and I left at the end of the season. I was gutted. I had figures in my head that I was going in to talk about new contracts and get an extra 20 quid a week or something, and then basically the rug was pulled under my feet, and I was devastated.
Yeah, you would be. You joined Hartlepool then, and did you have any offer? Did you think about coming back up the road at all, or did you want to stay down there?
I had a couple of offers. Hibs and St Mirren were both, Clydebank as well. They were all interested, but it was a kind of part-time basis. And I had been 2 years at Newcastle, and Hartlepool were sniffing about, and they were offering me full-time contract, which I still believed that I was good enough, and I thought coming back home was enticing because your family and everything, but I thought we'll give it another go. I signed a year with Hartlepool, and really my career really took off, albeit I still had five and a half seasons at Hartlepool, but it was a fantastic 5.5 seasons with them. A lot of lows as well as getting promotion, and a lot of highs as well. It was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Playing regular, consistent football as well, Rab, must have been good to finally sort of, like you say, get the career off and running.
Yeah, I was for 5.5 years. I think 3 of those seasons I was never present. I played every game. I was just loving playing football, and that, the contracts at Hartlepool, they weren't glamorous. They weren't, paying us fortunes, but every one of us enjoyed playing at the club. We had a good life away from the club. It was certainly a family club at the time. You knew everybody. Wasn't fantastic crowds until we started improving, and the promotion season in 1991 was a fantastic experience. The whole town just got behind us, and to get promotion into the old third division, again, one of my proudest achievements of club football.
Yeah, definitely. And did you play with I was looking at some of the players at Hartlepool at that time? It was Don Hutchison there at the time.
Yeah, Don was signed as a young kid. Again, you knew, similar to the Paul Gascoigne, you knew he had talent at training. His timekeeping was a wee bit questionable, but he was travelling down from Newcastle every day. Couple of times he turned up with McDonald's takeaways for his pre-match meals and stuff on the team bus, which didn't go down particularly. He had a couple of rough edges, but you knew he was unquestionably a great talent. And yeah, Don, I think when I played in a B squad and with Scotland, and Don was in my B squad as well, and it was good to, obviously he went on to Liverpool, and from Hartlepool, it was a great move for him. So I was proud, very proud that he'd done well and moved on from Hartlepool, because it's a club that doesn't always get recognised with harvesting talent, shall we say, but we had some decent players, and Don was certainly up there with one of the best.
Yeah, but they've sort of struggled in recent years, old Hartlepool. Is it sad to see that the sort of demise of the club, Rab?
Yeah, it is actually, but they've got a fantastic core of fans. I'm on WhatsApp chat groups with South East Hartlepool fans, local fans. I mean, they are nationwide, they're worldwide as well, to be honest. But they've got a hardcore of fans that just want the club to succeed. They're in the National League just now, which isn't ideal, but they're third place at the moment. So hopefully they can get back into league football and get the crowds back in next season and give themselves a good chance of getting into at least the automatic spot, if not the playoff spot.
Yeah, and of course, nobody's getting in grounds at the moment. But did you get down there much to go and see them when you could do?
Yeah, I had a couple of kind of question and answer things down there as well with some of the fans, just to raise funds for the club. And again, you're always treated like royalty when you go down there, and they really do look after you. Great hospitality, and again, just a family club that haven't really lost the kind of roots, and they just know. They know everyone, and they look after everybody, and it's a great club to be involved at.
Yeah, definitely. The Man United loan in 1990, how did all that come about?
I had been doing okay at Hartlepool. A lot of clubs have been sniffing about. I had went to Leeds United when Howard Wilkinson was the manager for to play in a kind of a practice match against his first team and reserve players. I had an offer to go on tour with Aston Villa with Ron Atkinson, which I kind of knocked back, to be honest with you. Whether that was a clever move or not, I don't know, but obviously I'll never know. But the Man United thing came about. Myself and a guy called Chris Short were asked to go along on a end of season tour just after Man United had won the cup, the FA Cup, beating Crystal Palace in the replay. I was asked to go over to Dusseldorf, I think it was, for an end of season tour. Again, I played well in the games, and Sir Alex had said, "Look, we'll get you back in pre-season training and you've done really well. Want to have another look." But then, for whatever reason, my manager Cyril Knowles never ever took up on the pre-season thing. I don't know whether he just wanted me to be sold to get money, or I don't know. But it was quite upsetting, to be honest, because I felt I had done okay in the games, and obviously Manchester United don't come knocking on your door every single day of the week. So it was something that I knew I had done okay, and I thought that I might have a chance in pre-season, and it was unfortunate that it didn't materialise, and it took me a little while to get over that. But I realised, I always had in my head that there was people coming to watch me, and that if I keep performing with Hartlepool, then I would get my move. And I never chapped on doors, I never demanded moves. I just believed in my ability to eventually know that somebody would chap on the door. And eventually it took a while, but Tommy McLean was the guy to make the offer and take me away from Hartlepool.
Yeah. Before we touch on that, you mentioned that you had that you were at Leeds United for a bit. How did you find Howard Wilkinson?
It was literally a day. The club chairman at Hartlepool drove me down there in the morning for training, or for the practice match. I was in Howard Wilkinson's office, and I just remember his office was just full of football videos. It was just, back in the VHS days and stuff, and it was just full of them, and it was like players from all over the world. He had pretty much a global network, probably way before most other clubs had, thinking about foreign players and stuff. And it was just video after it. It was incredible, actually, and it was all football, everything on his desk, everything was all related to his job, basically. There was no family pictures, there was nothing, it was just football, and that was it. I was introduced. Strachan was a player at the time, and John McClelland and people like that. So they all kind of made me feel at home, albeit it was just literally a 90-minute practice match just right outside the main stand on the training pitch. Yeah. And the manager had asked the chairman after the game if he could take me on loan till the end of the season, and the club said no, because basically we were in a promotion push at the time, and they didn't want to lose me to that side. The only way, if you lost a player on loan, there's no benefit for Hartlepool at that time, because they would have needed money to replace me. Yeah. And losing a player on loan, especially when you're going for promotion, and we didn't have a big squad. And again, I was disappointed, but I totally, I missed one game that season in the whole of the promotion season, and that was that night when Hartlepool went down to play Aldershot, and I think they won 5-0, so they didn't exactly miss me for the day. So it was. I can understand why the club did it, why they refused the loan deal, whereas they were preferring, obviously, to cash in on me.
Yeah. Now, so like you say, Rab, you come up the road, you joined Motherwell, and Tommy McLean is the manager. Were you pleased? Did you feel the time was right to come back up the road?
I think 5.5 years at Hartlepool, and you get obviously linked with a lot of clubs, and Motherwell came calling. they were obviously just won the Scottish Cup that season, beating Dundee United. So they were a club that I thought were on the up. But when I joined in the January, I played my last game for Hartlepool in an FA Cup tie down at Ipswich, who were a big club at the time. We drew one each, so it was a good match to finish up on with Hartlepool. And Motherwell had an offer accepted by the club. Again, I was driven up by the chairman, and I met the manager, the chairman, everything, and everything was fine. It wasn't a fantastic contract, but I felt I'm going from the old third division in England to the Premier League in Scotland. It was a fantastic opportunity to try and test yourself in the top league. My first game was against Celtic at Fir Park on a Wednesday night, and that game I was lucky I had my second win, shall we say, because it just the fitness levels and the difference in speed of the game from when I was at Hartlepool, obviously going to Motherwell, was just phenomenal. And I was very fortunate. I had a wonderful talent by the name of Davie Cooper playing next to me to help me in my debut.
Yeah, well, nice to mention him. I was going to ask about him. You played with some cracking players in your time, but he must be right up there.
Oh, I was asked to do a 1 to 11, I think, by a Motherwell podcast, and my best ever, it was Davie Cooper. He was phenomenal. I've played with, as you say, your Chris Waddles, Peter Beardsleys, people like that, and Cooper's up there. He's definitely, and I seen him at the end of his career, which again was even more just. It was fantastic, just how much skill the guy had, the talent, and as a person as well. When he, off the park, he was a gem of a guy, and obviously very sad that he's no longer here to catch up with, because he was certainly, my first game at Motherwell, as I said, was against Celtic, and in the dressing room before the game, just sat me to listen, calm down, relax, a massive game. He obviously knew I was a Celtic fan, I was younger, and he said, just relax and enjoy it. I'll look after you. He said, just, if you, he knew I like going forward. He said, you just take off, I'll sit in, I'll put you in, I've not got the legs. He said, I'll just play the passes and you do the running. And we drew nothing each that night. I think I was playing against Joe Miller, and obviously a talented winger at the time, another level up from what I was used to. So I had a great game that night with Davie Cooper. We drew nothing each. My dad still has the man of the match bottle in his house. So again, it was down to Cooper. And after the game, we were obviously buzzing because we'd taken a point against Celtic, and he came over and how did you enjoy it? And it was fantastic. And he said, I was disappointed. One of the balls that I played you, the mitre sign wasn't quite the right way up when it landed at your feet. So it was, but no, it was just a joy to play with, to be honest. And I think I've got a lot of guys, ex-colleagues at Motherwell, teammates that I can thank for making my time easier, shall we say, when I first went there. But Cooper was certainly up there as probably one of the most influential.
Yeah, it's funny, you mentioned John McClelland earlier. I interviewed him a few years ago, and he was talking about Cooper and said on the park he would just have tantrums at players because they're not passing it to his feet and all that sort of stuff. He was known the moody blue. Did you see that sometimes on the park?
I think he'd maybe chilled out a little bit by the time he came over, to be honest. He would still have his tantrums, but I mean, most of guys like Stevie Cup there who would just, they would give him a bit back, and it was just all banter, and there was a lot of guys in the dressing room that had good banter, to be honest. So, but Cooper used to amaze me. We trained in, over at Hamilton Palace grounds at times, and there was one time on a rugby pitch, one of the rugby pitches we were training on, and it was a bog. It was the middle of winter, and it was an absolute bog. But Davie, the ball was just glued to his feet, like even in a mud bath of a pitch, and he just seemed to glide past people. He would, and it was just he was a great talent, and I obviously I can't speak highly enough of him, and I do have fantastic memories of being lucky enough to have played in the same team as him.
Yeah, but another player sadly no longer with us, who'd been a young boy back then, Phil O'Donnell. Do you know then he was a decent player then, Rab, when he was at Motherwell as a youngster?
Undoubtedly. When I had signed, obviously everyone was talking about Phil O'Donnell because he played so well in the cup final. And again, he was a kind of left half, shall we say, old left midfielder. You had Cooper on the outside and you me at left back, and we just seemed to all click at the same time. And Philip was a great talent. He had a great engine, also a great talent as well with the ball at his feet. He had just seemed to glide past players with ease. But he was a great talent, but most of all, he was a humble human being. He was a lovely kid. I was fortunate enough to be a good close friend with him at the time at Motherwell, and obviously heartbroken at what had happened. But a great talent. You just knew that he wouldn't be at Motherwell very long before a club came calling, and obviously, again, his childhood team came calling, and he was away, and club was 1.8 million, I think it was, for Philip. So again, it really did help to let Philip go to Celtic. It was disappointing, but again, the bonus was that the manager had money to spend.
Yeah, but you mentioned that playing against Celtic. When you went to Glasgow and played at Celtic Park in Ibrox, is that something you revelled in, Rab, to go to these sort of venues?
I think if you ask any player, the Scottish player anyway, homegrown players, where they want to go and perform, Hampden Park's your pinnacle, because you're playing in a cup final or you're representing your country. But behind that, you've got Celtic and Rangers. Ibrox and Parkhead were fantastic venues to play football in. The setting, the crowd, just everything was phenomenal. Absolutely loved playing against Celtic and Rangers. We had some pretty good success against both the Old Firm back in the day as well, when we were challenging for kind of third and second place. And great memories. Having won at Celtic Park when it was Fergus McCann's first game in charge. Dougie Arnott scored. We won 1-0. Beating Rangers 2-0 at Ibrox when they were odds on to win the league, and we were challenging them. It was a fantastic experiences, and obviously you sit and watch the games now, and you reminisce now and again at some of the times and some of the games that you've been on those pitches, and getting dogs abuse from both sets of fans. But at the end of the day, that they only give you dogs abuse if you're a half decent player, in my opinion. So I must have been doing something right.
Absolutely. Of course, Alex McLeish, his first job at Motherwell. How did you find him? Because he played for a wee bit as well, and then he went into the coaching, didn't he?
Yeah, he signed as a player manager. Really enjoyed working with Alex. He was again a man manager. He was probably still had the mentality of being a player as well. We kind of joining in with players, we kind of banter and stuff like that. And I think he balanced it well. He had a couple of run-ins with probably some high-profile run-ins with Paul Lambert that's maybe been on record in the past. But I think I just enjoyed working with him. He went out his way to make his players appreciate him as much as he appreciated us. And again, we had some success. We Tommy McLean's side, I think, finished third, and then we finished second with Alex as well. And albeit a lot of people said that it was Tommy McLean's team and all the rest of it, but you still need a manager to come in there and manage the players. And Alex done a very good job. And a couple of difficult seasons after that, but however, it was I enjoyed working with him. There's people I think that maybe have other opinions, but for me anyway, I always thought he was a good manager, and he did have potential to go on and to manage at the top, which he obviously did.
Yeah, but you mentioned there Paul Lambert. Of course, he'd go on and join Borussia Dortmund, the team that you'd play at Motherwell. Did you have any idea then when he was at Motherwell that he'd go on and not only play in the Champions League final but win the trophy itself?
No, I don't think anyone, could have in their wildest dreams would have thought that, we went on a pre-season tour. It was over to Holland. The agent that took care of the whole tour had remembered myself and Paul from the tour, and when my contract was up with Motherwell, he had made contact with my agent, who asked if I wanted to go over. So I went over and had a chat, and basically Lambert was phoning me every night at the time because his contract was up as well, and asking if I had anything or if I'd heard anything and all this kind of stuff. And he had told me, he said, mention my name to the agent guy who you're with then. I said, yeah, I'll do that, no problem. So over a cup of coffee at night time, I had said to Ton van Dalen, who was a Dutch agent at the time, I said, Ton, was a teammate of mine, obviously, that would be keen on looking at his options. And I think it was after that he had him going to PSV with Dick Advocaat to play in a friendly game. And then after that he went to Dortmund. And as you said, the rest is history. European Cup winner, Champions League. He's won many titles with Dortmund and Celtic and trophies and stuff. So I don't think the games at Dortmund, after those games, you could say, that he was good enough to go and play there. I think they obviously saw something, and I think they moulded him into the player that they wanted. They saw obviously talent there. They saw signs of, great skill and composure in the ball, and they obviously took a chance. They didn't have to pay anything for him, and they, to go the following season to win a European Cup was just phenomenal achievement. And obviously he went on to another level really after that.
Yeah, certainly did. Before we touched on your move to Holland, Rab, of course, when you were at Motherwell, that's when you'd represent Scotland as well. It must have been a proud moment for you and your family to do that. Yeah,
I mean, I was mentioned in the kind of B squads. I was getting in the fringe of the A squad. I had to pull out. My first actual full squad was a game against Italy over in the Olympic Stadium in Rome, and I played against Hibs on the Saturday prior, and I just remember about 10-15 minutes going in for a tackle, and I just kind of tweaked my groin, and I thought I probably should have come off at the time, thinking, ahead for being in a Scotland squad, but I played on, just because I think it was a tight game, and I played on, and I don't think I'd done myself any favours, and unfortunately I had to pull out of that one. So I was gutted because it was your first squad, Italy away. I mean, Baggio and people like that, and that era, it was just quite disappointing, to be honest. But I got another chance, obviously, and I was fortunate enough to get 3 full caps for my country. The pride and the honour of being chosen as the best fullback at that time for your country was just, it's a phenomenal experience, and just one again. I wasn't fortunate to get 50 caps and all the rest of it, but the 3 I got, I was tremendously proud, and still to this day, they're in the jerseys and the caps. My dad's got one, and I've got one in a frame, and I just, it's upstairs in one of the bedrooms, and it's just, you pass it every now and again, you have a look and you think, God, it seems a lifetime ago, that I managed to achieve that, but it still, fills you with pride when you look at it to this day.
Oh, absolutely. Was there maybe a tinge of disappointment? I know the 3 caps were all away from home. Do you sort of harbour ambitions that you just wanted to run out of Hampden at least once?
I remember there was a game at home against Greece, and it was another one I had been in the squad, and another, unfortunately, I had to pull out because I was having bother with kind of a nose problem with breathing at the time, and this is when all these rubber band things were getting put on the bridge of people's noses and stuff. So I had tried all that, and nothing would, I just seemed really drained with half an hour to go in matches, and I was in Bon Secours Hospital, which is a spitting distance of Hampden, and I just remember I had an operation to take away polyps in my nose. Wow. And I was recovering while the Scotland-Greece game was going on, and I could hear the crowd and cheering and everything. I think Scotland won 1-0 that night. McCoy scored, and again it was a game that I'd missed out on at Hampden, and probably, lucky enough to play at Hampden with Clydebank against Queen's Park, and also with, Celtic had their stadium, they were getting their stadium revamped, and they used Hampden for a season or two, so we played in some games there as well, and it was a fantastic experience. But yeah, to represent your country at home at Hampden would have been phenomenal. But unfortunately, it was 3 away games, but again, they still count. I was lucky enough we didn't get beat, didn't concede any goals in my 3 caps, so there's not many internationals can say that these days.
It's some record. Back to the club duty then, of course, you decide to move away in '96 and move to Holland, FC Twente. What was it? Did you just fancy a fresh challenge then, Rab? Completely something new?
I think at the time, Aberdeen had, this was all to do with, the Bosman ruling at the time, and Aberdeen had offered 400 grand to Motherwell for me to go and join them, and I'd spoke to Roy Aitken at the time, and it was a kind of last minute thing really. Agent had called me on a Sunday night, and he said, I've got a call from a Dutch agent, he wants you to go over and talk. There's a club called FC Twente. Had heard of them because when I was at Newcastle, I'd went and played in a youth tournament in Enschede, so I knew the club. Didn't know any players or anything, but I did know of them. So I thought at the time it was worthwhile having a discussion with them. Went over at the time, and obviously the Bosman ruling, it did mean that players were probably going to financially be rewarded more because the clubs didn't have to pay transfer fees. So I went over, disappointed from Motherwell's point of view, because there was a 400 grand offer there from Aberdeen, but I just felt that to get away from the Scottish football, playing each other 4 times a season, just something fresh at my age. I was 96. My 30th birthday was fast approaching when I joined, so I wasn't a young kid. I wanted to experience something, and to be honest, I was very, very glad and again honoured that I had 2 great years in Holland with a great club. We managed to finish in Europe, and it was a fantastic experience.
Yeah, you mentioned that the Bosman, it would have been one of the first transfers at that time. Did you get any grief from Motherwell at the time for no staying in Scotland and losing out on the money?
I don't think so. No, I think Alex would probably have liked me. I went to Aberdeen, and he would have been given money to kind of reshape the squad and stuff, because it did need refreshing. But no, I don't think so. I mean, this is obviously before social media and stuff, so I would imagine had there been Facebook and Instagram, I'd maybe have been on the end of some scathing comments. But I think most fans were genuinely happy that I had served 4.5 seasons for Motherwell. We had achieved, finished second in the league with 2 amazing games against Dortmund, as you said, in Europe. And to be honest, I don't think many people begrudged me moving on, and I did. I did have 2 fantastic years, and it was sad. The club didn't get reimbursed, but it was also, from my own point of view, I had to look after myself, my family, and financially, it was far more rewarding than even going to Aberdeen at that time.
Yeah, but on the field, did you notice a difference in the style of play and all that when you went over there?
I mean, it was night and day. It really was. You had players that really, wingers wouldn't come near you until you went into their half. You just sat back. You could play across the back 4 to your heart's content. You would, and it was all about, it was all about probing and finding areas and really knocking the ball, keeping the ball moving. And I had an East German manager who I did not understand one word that he spoke of, and he didn't understand me. I couldn't speak Dutch at the time, so everything was having to be translated through the coach, Fred Rutten. Yeah. And he used to tell me, I know you like going forward, but I don't want you bombing forward 10 times in one half and only delivering one good cross. I want you to go 4 times, 5 times, and I want 2 or 3 good crosses. And that's, you know, and it was just really, it was teaching you, it was just really thinking more about the game rather than just bombing forward all the time. And hopefully one of them times that you get forward, you manage to get a cross in. It was just really thinking and really being more tactical and just probing teams more and trying to pull people out of shape and triangle passes and stuff. And it was an eye-opener for me because I had never been fitter. In pre-season, there was no mad runs around Strathclyde Park. There was no up hills and up sand dunes at Gullen Beach and stuff. It was just all to do with the ball, running with the ball, and I had never been fitter, to be honest, and at 30 years of age. And it was a great learning experience. The players all treated the training and the club and their job. It was a full-time job. There were mornings we would train three times a day. And, you know, back in Scotland, you would think, God, that's, you know, pre-season was morning and afternoon, but after that, you were finished at 12 o'clock and up the road. Whereas over there, you know, it was days 4 or 5 o'clock, you're coming home after 3 bouts of training, fitness training, physique training, just recovery training. It was just all sorts of different training. And it was just, everything was all planned. You know, you had a month's planner that went up and it told you what day you were training, what day you were travelling, what day you were overnight, staying before games and your days off. Everything was all done and it was just so professional. Sat and had lunch together. It was all about food and diet and nutrition, and it was just a fantastic experience. It really was.
Yeah, you mentioned the language there. Did it take you a wee while to learn the language, Rab? And on the field, was it a struggle at first to understand your teammates and things?
I don't think language is a barrier when it comes to playing football. When you're on the pitch, you can shout, you can make people know where you are by just a shout. And the Dutch guys all loved speaking English. It was like they wanted to show off because, you know, they'd been taught it at school. You know, they were fluent in Dutch and German, French, English. It was just put us to shame, you know, but they did enjoy it. But I did take lessons every day. Between morning and afternoon training, I had a teacher that came to the stadium and he gave me kind of lessons for about an hour every day. So I did eventually pick it up. It's a difficult language, but I got the kind of grips of it with the basics and stuff. And you know, I think the players responded more to that because you were actually trying to learn their lingo rather than, you know, just being a bit lazy and hoping that they all talk to you in English. So I think they did appreciate that a bit more. And again, it helped with your, you know, communicate with the manager as well, because he at the time was learning Dutch as well. So we were, you know, we could then communicate face to face rather than going through an interpreter and things getting taken out of context. So it was great.
Yeah, in terms of your teammates, we had Theo Tenka on last month, and I asked him I was going to speak to you. He says, tell him what he thinks he's his old roommate. How did you find him? Yeah,
Theo was a top guy. I mean, he had a fantastic Dutch-Scottish accent when he played FC Twente. And he loved, again, he was one of the guys that loved the kind of talking and the Scottish roll in English to me. The two of us were roommates. Again, he was one of these guys that kind of looked after you and kept you right and, you know, told you really just through his experience of, you know, when you have to recover, when you have to, you know, prepare for a game and when you have to get to your bed and all that kind of stuff. And he looked after me, and he was a great guy. I mean, we had some good laughs at the time for the 2 years we were there. And he is a guy that had, you know, good experience, a good player at Aberdeen when he was playing with Aberdeen. And yeah, great talent, played on the left-hand side as well, similar to Davie Cooper. He was on that side of the field, which made it a lot easier for me as well when I first settled in.
Yeah, he mentioned, I asked him about Jan Vennegoor of Hesselink, who was there at the time, and he says he was a nightmare at first up front, and they were thinking about putting him in defence. Was it that bad? How good was he?
I think we had a guy up front called Johnny Bosman, who was a Dutch internationalist, and again, Johnny was coming to the end of his career. He was about 34, I think, but was scoring goals for fun. So it was always going to be hard for a young kid coming through. But Jan did get he would come on as a sub, or he would get the odd game if Johnny was injured. He would come on and he would always do well. I never doubted really that he was a talent. I think he knew where the goal was. He was big and strong. He would put his head in the most awkward of places to get a chance, a sniff at goal from corners, from free kicks. And he was just a brave, big guy. He didn't have phenomenal skill like most Dutch people have, but he knew where the goal was. And I think, I don't think they ever doubted that he would make it up front. I just think that, Dutch people or the players and coaches, they try and make players rounded players, and really they can play anywhere. And most training sessions in the afternoon, we would finish with a game where if you were a left back, you moved over to right back, and you were not allowed to touch the ball with your left foot, or else we gave a free kick away. So it was like just really training your mind. And my right foot at that period was never as good as when I played in Holland. You were actually comfortable coming inside from the left-hand side and playing a right-footed pass, whereas, at Motherwell, I would just be going around in circles to get the ball back onto my left, and it trained your mind to just relax and be comfortable with your weak foot. Or, most of these guys played, if they were a left winger like Theo, he would go over to the right and he would be perfectly comfortable with his right foot as well, because that's just the way the Dutch game, the Dutch kids are brought through the youth system. And but yeah, the Big Jan was you knew he was going to be a talent, I think, from an early age.
Yeah, of course, a great first season for you there. You mentioned that finishing third in the league, get European football. Playing against the big sides, Rab, was that again, like Rangers and Celtic, something you thrived on over there?
It was the games, obviously. As a player in Scotland, you look at the clubs in Holland and you think, your PSV, you've got your Feyenoord and you've got your Ajax. That's the big three. Nobody really comes close to that anywhere else in the country. So those were the games, obviously, when the fixtures were released, that you look at and you thought, right, that's going to be interesting, and the added bonus was that the arena had just been built for Ajax, and we played them in the beginning of the season in a cup game, and we beat them 4-1, and I managed to score a header that day in the arena. So it was just that, when you go over to a club, you want to make an impression, and obviously getting off to a start like that, they hadn't beat Ajax in years, and we beat them 4-1, albeit there was a kind of second string team. It wasn't the strongest team, shall we say, but we went there and we played really well, and obviously scoring and doing well in that game, it helps you settle straight away. And that season, I think the 34 games in the league, we won about 19 or 20 of them, and as you say, we finished third. We beat, to split up the big three was something that the club hadn't done in years and years and years. So again, a fantastic achievement with the club, and the fans, the town, they were just bonkers. It was just a fantastic spell being at the club, and to this day they still remember you because it was the club that split up the big three.
Yeah. Was there any player you came up against when you were over there that gave you a tough afternoon?
Well, have you been talking to Theo? He's probably got a few. No, I played the Ajax side at the time, had a guy called Babangida, who was a small right winger that literally he could probably give Carol Lewis or somebody a run for their money at 100 metres. He was just lightning, this guy.
Yeah. And
I always enjoyed playing against him. Playing against Larsson. Larsson was more of a winger when he was in Feyenoord, when I was playing for FC Twente. and you had Brian Laudrup at Rangers as well, who was a talented player. But I loved playing against, good, skillful wingers rather than guys that had sheer pace, because I just hated chasing back. I'd rather a player would put his wits against me with skill and get by me with skill rather than just pace, because I just hated it. But Babangida was probably the quickest player I've ever played against, and really at the time in Holland was probably the, Hoostra, I think, had went back from Rangers. He was kind of in his last legs, if you like, from a football point of view. But Babangida was certainly one of the players I remember playing against, and just for pure pace.
Yeah, he was something else. You'd leave then after a couple of years, and you come back home. Did you feel that the time was right then to come back, Rab, or did you want to stay longer?
I felt at the time it was right for the family. My daughter was born in the February before we came back home over in Holland, and my son was getting to a stage where he would have to start primary school, and it was a couple of times he was getting a bit upset because teachers weren't talking English to him in a Dutch kind of kindergarten, which kind of makes you a little bit unsettled. But having spoke to teachers, they said, look, he will pick it up. Kids are like sponges, blah blah blah, and he was picking it up. My youngest son now goes to a Gaelic school in East Kilbride, and he picks that up as well. And had I persevered, I think he would have probably settled in at the school and picked up the language a lot quicker than what I would have been at that age. But we just decided that Hearts had made an offer at the time, and a pre-Bosman, a pre-season kind of offer to me in the January, and it was just, I think the time was right just to come home, just for my oldest son to go to school. From a football point of view, probably, you look back at it and you think probably should have stayed on, but from a family point of view, I felt I did the right thing. Didn't have the most successful of 2 seasons at Hearts when I went there, so looking at the kind of time I had at FC Twente, I'm sure the club went on to win a cup and stuff like that, so having been part of that would have been exceptional from a football point of view. But I just felt it was the right thing to do for my son.
Yeah, obviously you're at Hearts. Jim Jeffries was the manager there at the time. You went out on loan a couple of times as well, didn't you? Hartlepool and Carlisle. But just disappointing not to get more opportunities there. Yeah,
I think I was kind of, having spoken to Jim Jeffries before I'd signed in the January. He said that we've got a young kid coming through. He's a good young talent. But we see that he could learn from you, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff. Which he kind of gave me all that spiel, and I thought, yeah, that's great. Unbeknown to me, that young kid was Gary Naismith, and really, I don't think he needed much in the way of guidance at the time. So he was a great young kid as well, good left back. Obviously went on to have a fantastic career, and at the time, I was coming in and out of the team, playing well in certain games, and then getting dropped the following game. If Gary was injured, he was coming back into the team. So it was a stop-start 2 seasons, shall we say. But one, again, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, great bunch of guys, Dan Jackson, Stephen Presley, Paul Ritchie, Stevie Fulton, all these guys. I mean, Gary Locke, just characters. And it was a great dressing room to be in. I mean, it really was. But from a football point of view, it wasn't my most successful time. Yeah,
and then after that, you go back. You go to Clydebank, wasn't it, for a couple of years? You were down there, and then you went into the juniors with Bellshill. Is that right?
Yeah. I finished off my kind of senior career with Clydebank for 2 years. John Viola had put money into the club to try and obviously guide it to back to kind of former glory, shall we say. It didn't quite work out, and obviously the club had to fold after 2 seasons, which, from my point of view, I wasn't, I was coming to the end of my career. I was 34, 35, whatever I was at the time. So I wasn't really, that bothered, not bothered, but I wasn't that affected by the club going the way they went, but it was a lot of young kids there that really needed to try and get another club, and that's what I felt Clydebank should have concentrated on doing when the funds weren't there. It folded, and that was it, and collapsed. And unfortunately, the young kids were left with a kind of uncertainty, which some of them, some of the older players that we were there would try and use their contacts and get kids in for trials or whatever. And from that point of view, a lot of good supporters as well. They had a great fan base as well during that time, and very, very difficult. And I think, again, that was a kind of sad 2 years.
Yeah.
Having been there, we felt we had a good enough squad to win promotion. We didn't get promotion, and then obviously the owners felt that they didn't want to kind of put any more money into the club and withdrew their financial investment, and really the club had nowhere to go from there. So yeah. I'm glad to see that they're back up and running in the junior leagues, and they're doing quite well. Hopefully one day they can get back into the league again. But yeah. I was at Bellshill with Tommy Coyne, as you mentioned, and we had 3 seasons there. Again, fantastic experience. That was our first kind of dip in the water as far as management went and coaching, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I still keep in contact with 2 or 3 guys, one of which that, as I said to you earlier on, introduced me to fishing, and we still, we go fishing every now and again, myself and my pal. So that was a great experience. Loved it, and really the 3 years it kind of finished up kind of unsavoury with the owners, but I had a great 3 years. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and now I don't have any involvement in the game. I go and watch my youngest play for EKYC, and that's about it.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Did you, leaving Bellshill, did that sort of put you off the game a wee bit, Rab, or did you have aspirations to continue the coaching side of things?
I enjoyed the coaching side of it, no question about it. Whether I had that step up again to be the manager and the head on the pulpit, I'm not quite so sure. I enjoyed the relationship with the players rather than obviously boards and directors and stuff like that. And at the time, I'm involved with my family business, and at the time that was taking up all of my time anyway, and it was getting harder and harder to get away on a Saturday as well, because you're trying to build up your own life, basically your business, and it was getting harder. So in a way, a slight relief to be able to then just take a step back and just get involved, put my 100% into my business, and from that point of view, I haven't really looked back. Yeah,
but Alex is on. What is it that keeps you busy just now then, Rab? What is it?
Well, we have a body shop and a HGV commercial garage in Beardsley, and we've got a kind of private garage up in East Kilbride that we do public tyres and MOTs and servicing and stuff like that. So there's myself, my brother and my sister. My dad's retired now, and he took a step back a few years ago and left it to his 3 children to either make a balls up or else take it to a step forward. So thankfully we've done okay. Hopefully we've made them proud.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. Magic. Thank you very much. Well, it's been terrific having you on, Rab. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Derek, and all the best, and hopefully a much better 2021 around the corner for everybody.
Can't be any worse, that's for sure.
Absolutely.